me see if I can here. Just to let you know, this session will be recorded. Is there anybody that has a problem with that?
I'm sorry, I already started the recording, but please turn off your camera if you are not comfortable with that.
So very quickly, my name is Ellen Brouwer. I'm the certification manager. I've developed a certification program a couple of years ago, and yeah, I'm really excited where the program has gone in the last few years. We launched the program in 2021, and yeah, 2 years further, a lot of exciting stuff has happened, and especially for the clients that have been certified for some time. Thank you so much for staying with us. And Anne-Wil, maybe you want to say something?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Anne-Wil Broersma. I've met some of you already. I started working for Climate Neutral Group May last year, so actually almost a year. I'm the Standards Assurance and Verification Manager, which in practice means that I'm the main contact person for the CBs, for the auditors, but I also am tasked with monitoring the quality of the CBs. So it doesn't matter if you hire one CB over the other, or it doesn't matter if you get auditor A or B. You always get the same audit results. That's my responsibility. Yeah, and be co-presenting with Ellen today.
So a bit about the agenda today. We're first going to recap a little bit on the certification program. Then we'll really dive deep into the year 2 and year 3 requirements. We will also share some additional rules that we've developed since, well, in the last year really, that are additional to the program as lessons learned really. A bit of an outlook, how we're looking forward, what kind of changes we expect, or where do we think that we should focus on, and then there's some time for questions. In the meantime, if you come across anything that's not clear to you, or if you just have questions about something, please put them in the chat, and we, Anne-Wil, myself, will rotate trying to answer your questions, and we will also have some time at the end under the Q&A chapter to discuss some of your core questions that you may have. Yeah, and we would like to ask you to please mute yourself, but I guess that's self-evident. All right, and a little bit recapping. There are 3 program documents: the Climate Neutral Standard, the Assurance Protocol, and the Trademarks and Claims Policy. I'm sure by now you've at least seen those documents, and I hope you've been able to familiarize yourselves a little bit with them. Because I mean, you're compliant for a reason, so I guess you know these documents. The whole spirit of the certification program is that we really want you as clients to set and achieve, and that's very important, ambitious reduction targets. So with our program, we really aim high, and we put the bar high, maybe more or higher compared to other certification programs that are there in the climate space. And that's really what we envision, and we really want to we want to report on that as well. So we really want to envision that we can report on the quality and the credibility that we're bringing with our program. So when you're achieving your annual reduction target, that's the target that is imposed annually, and you're offsetting your remaining emissions year after year, you may claim that you're either a climate neutral organization, or that you have or deliver climate neutral services and or products. So we are really looking for those clients that show true commitment and sort of are the front runners in this whole fight against climate change. So those are really the clients that we're looking for. Yeah, because we really want to position this whole thing as putting the bar high as an important component of our program. I'm also happy to say that the Climate Neutral Certified is the trademark is officially registered in the EU, the Benelux, the EU, and also has been accepted in the US last year. So I'm formally registered trademarks there. And I'm sure that you also know our certification website, climateneutralcertification.com, where you can find all the program documents, basically all the reference material that you may need. So in a nutshell, what is the program about? You set your baseline year, and based on that baseline year that you've set, you are obliged to reduce year after year a little bit. Between now and 2030, for many of the countries that we're working with, there's an interim target. At the moment, that interim target for certification of an organization is set at 49% reduction compared to the baseline year. But that will most likely change, because I'm sure that you're all familiar with the new imposed regulation by the EU. At the moment, the Klimaatakkoord, that the regulation in the Netherlands is going to change, and actually the target will be increased to 55% by 2030. And the law is in the make, so it's sort of like passing the different stages that it needs to pass in order to become an official law, but most likely that's going to happen in the next few months. Once that happens, that means also that the target in our standard will be changed. So that's good to recognize. Depending on when this is becoming formal, we'll draft a position paper about this and discuss with our advisory committee what the implications are and if there's a transition period and all of that. But good to be aware of this, that the interim target in the Netherlands, but also in other European countries, is most likely going to be sharpened in the next few months. For the certification of organizational product, the same thing applies. You are supposed to reduce your emissions with 25% by 2030. I think most of you are familiar with these graphs, so I'm going a little bit fast. And we've also learned, and this is also part of the standard, that the reality is not always so linear as the picture displays. Sometimes clients have been able to set an earlier baseline, because this way they could already incorporate some of the earlier reduction measures that they had implemented. Some clients are going faster, so that's scenario 3. They're achieving more reductions than actually was envisioned. So if that is possible, that means that they can qualify as a good performer. And we have a couple of clients that actually met this requirement, and that means that they're exempted from certain the frequency of certain audits. So actually they have to undergo less audits or less frequent. So yeah, if you think that you're qualified, please let Anne-Wil know, because then we can arrange that with the CBs, but the CBs should check this. Could also be the opposite, that's scenario 4, where you're achieving insufficient reductions. If this is done beyond the flexibility rule, so we have the 3-year flexibility rule where you are allowed to not be on track on the reduction curve. But if this is happening consistently over a longer period than 3 years, then that means that you are consistently achieving insufficient reductions, and that you will be decertified or suspended. So that's something to be really looking forward to, in the sense, well, not looking forward, but to take into account. For some of you as clients, the flexibility rule is going to end after next year. So just be really cautious about that. And if you feel that this would not be fair to you, and you feel like you need a little bit more time to come back on track, for which you have justifiable reasons, then you can request a justifiable delay. So that's important to also take into account. There may be situations, legitimate reasons why you need a little bit more time beyond the 3-year flexibility rule to become to be on track with the reduction line. And if that's the case, then you can request an exception to us. Okay. So a little bit more about where we are. We are more and more specializing in agricultural commodities, food and beverages, food products. Doesn't mean that we are completely excluding any other kind of activities, types of organizations, services, etc. But we see more and more that there's a demand to make on-pack claims on agricultural commodities, and it's gradually, slowly, we're more specializing in that. By now, and this is an estimate, we believe that we've roughly sold around 40 million products sold as climate neutral certified. The trademark is now present in 14 countries, where you can see, and we have approximately 60 clients certified. So what makes our program unique? I already mentioned a little bit that we want to really put the bar high. So we have a very stringent reduction component, and that's really because we believe that that's needed in order to make impact. We're also officially acknowledged by ICIL. We're an ICIL community member. That means that we really have to follow all the rules imposed by ICIL. They have their own codes, and we need to make sure that we adhere to that code. We're actually part of the revision of the new code that ICIL is going to launch, which means even stricter rules imposed to scheme owners like us. So it will only be more credible, I would say. We work with certification bodies, which means that the complete audit and certification process is outsourced to assure impartiality. And we are always looking for innovative concepts to really help you achieving your reduction target. So we have a whole team of technical experts, consultants, but also on top of that, we're really exploring how we can achieve and how you can achieve your reduction targets. And so insetting has been really on our agenda lately. We have a new insetting manager in our team who is really currently at the moment exploring all sorts of insetting concepts. We're piloting them. We have a range of, I would say, at the moment, around 8 pilots to really learn best lessons from those and to draft that into a revised version of the current Annex 4, if I'm not mistaken, Annex 4 or 5 of the standard, so that we actually develop a whole new mini standard, an insetting standard, and that's expected by the end of the summer to have a first version of that being launched. Hopefully we'll make that, but let's see. Yeah. So I'm sure that you all are following a little bit, well, of course, the news, but there is increasingly a lot of regulation going on. And there's also a lot of discussion going on. There's, of course, the whole discussion about, are we moving fast enough? This decade is sort of seen as the decisive decade, and knowing that we're already in 2023, we basically have 7 more years to change things around. And that's so short. So that means that we really have to take action. And that's being understood at all sorts of levels. And that's also the reason why the European Commission has now last week launched its proposal on green claims, which is most likely going to become law in this version of the proposal, or maybe with some adjustments, but most likely this is going to be scaled up as soon as possible. And that will really mean that at national level, different entities will be installed to really oversee how claims are being made in all the different countries. And this will be increasingly important. All sorts of rules as to how to make green claims. And in an increasing requirement in that green claims proposal is that claims are substantiated with footprints. Yeah, and that is taking of course a lot of concern by some, causing a lot of concern by some people. But we believe that that is really the way forward in order to be able to really make and visualize impact. Yeah, so that is really the era that we're in, and you will also see how what I was just saying. This is a snapshot from the nieuwe Klimaatwet in the Netherlands, which is most likely going to be accepted very soon, where the 55% reduction target is imposed. What I was just saying about. And actually in France, there is already a new law already active since the beginning of this year, which gives all sorts of regulation about how on-pack claims on products need to be made and what kind of reporting obligations apply in that sense. So what needs to be displayed on the website or on that product, and it's being monitored very closely. So you increasingly see also at national level that there's more rules around claims making. Then I think it's now your turn, Annabelle.
Yes, I think so too. Yeah, so I will be telling you something about the specific year 2 and year 3 requirements, which are going to be audited in your during your second and third audit. Next slide, please, Ellen. Yeah, so to briefly recap, because this is applicable for whatever year you are, we have 5 core and general criteria, which are divided over 5 different chapters. Often we see that clients focus on the footprint and on the reduction plan. But actually, we've written the program in such a way that if you follow the 5 chapters, that really makes a lot more sense how to also implement your reduction measures within your company. So it starts with chapter 1, quality management system, which I will tell more about in a bit. You define your organizational and your operational boundaries, which have direct impact on the way you have to calculate your footprint. Chapter 4 describes your reduction plan and all the requirements relating to that. And chapter 5, we also see becoming more and more important is on reporting and claims making. So you should really see that the whole program, the whole standard as a holistic system. On the right, you also see an overview of the different annexes that accompany the standard. And for most of the annexes, you can find guiding documentation on the certification website. So you can find templates or really short PowerPoint presentations that give you a little bit more insight into what we actually envisioned when writing the standard. So I really encourage you to have a look there if for example, it is unclear what we mean with a quality management system, or we have templates for the climate policy. It really tries to make your work easier. Ellen, next slide. So the same as that the 5 chapters are the holistic, are holistic. We also try to incorporate this this picture into all the different parts of the standards. It's the plan, do, check, act principle that asks you to monitor what you're doing. What to set. You start with setting goals. You monitor that, and you check if you meet the goals that you've set, and if you don't, what are you going to do via corrective actions or corrections to get back on track. So you see that this model is represented in the program. Next slide, please. Yeah, so here's a very brief overview of the additional year 2 and year 3 requirements. For each of the additional requirements, we have a slide, and I will briefly say something about it. Next slide, please. Yeah, so as I already mentioned, requirement 1.3 from the standards is about, or chapter 1 is about the quality management system. And on the website, we have additional information on what we mean. But on this slide, we also summarize some information. This requirement for year 3 really asks for you to show during an audit in what way do you prepare for an audit every year. Where do you who's responsible for getting all the information? Where do you get the information from? Which departments are involved? And then, are you meeting all your targets, your goals? Is your reduction target being met? And if not so, what are you going to do? How are you going to monitor that? What actions are you going to implement? Important part of this quality management system is document control. Oh yeah, thanks. Is the document control. So do you have control over your version control? Did you agree with your colleagues in which way you're gonna name documents, store them, update them? Do you have, can you show during an audit where certain information is coming from? Can you, do you have ownership over that documentation? So you see in the bottom a little print screen of the requirement from the standard. So that is the requirement that it refers to. Next slide, please. Yeah, and also related to requirement 1.3, this is requirement 1.4. It's on the climate policy. You've drafted a climate policy already in your first year of certification, and in the second year, it is required for you to publish that online. And we've also developed a guidance document, a template, I mean, so feel free to use that in case you're wondering what a good climate policy looks like. But if everything is correct, you've already had that prepared and audited last year or during your first audit. Again, this climate policy is not just a standalone document that would just require you to produce for fun. We think it's a crucial element to communicate to your stakeholders also what you are doing regarding climate action, what your goals are, but also again, who is responsible for this. So it's nice to document your goals in a document, but what do you do when you're not on track? Is it signed off by senior management? An auditor will also check if it is published or if it's already published or where are you going to publish it on your website. And they are going to check if this climate policy is also, if the information from the climate policy is also embedded within your organization. So are people aware within your organization that this is happening? And is the climate policy also updated regularly? That are the most, I think, the most important elements of that requirement. Next slide, please. So requirement 1.5 is only relevant for organizations that, companies that have organization certification. So if you're product or service certified, then this does not apply. For companies that are organization certified, in the first year, we require you to make a top 3 of your scope 3 emissions. And during the second year, you are required to build on this. So based on the analysis you did in year 1, you can build on that. And what we want with this requirement is that you really, and that's our goal for the whole program, is that also other partners, other companies are influenced by actually what we do. So we would like you to influence your upstream and downstream partners, and you can do that by either requesting carbon footprints from maybe your suppliers or upstream, downstream, depends on where you think you have influence and where the most emission is happening. In some sectors, this is really not an option. Other companies are unwilling to share carbon footprints, or they don't have them. Maybe the whole climate debate is very the debate is in its infancy stages. And then we also allow you to be a front runner. That's under at the very bottom you see the B. You explore opportunities and or develop an action plan. So if you think other companies, they cannot help me meet this requirement. I actually have to start something myself, to maybe engage in a platform or another type of initiative. This requirement actually leaves quite a bit of room for you to argue that something that you're doing is actually also worthwhile to meet this requirement. And we're not very prescriptive. Yeah, like I said, in some sectors, it's very easy to get a carbon footprint from a supplier, and in others it's not. So it really depends on the sector you are, what opportunities you have, and that justification. If you can explain that justification to an auditor, yeah, they will probably follow the reasoning there. Next slide, please, Ellen. Yes. So this requirement 3.8 happens when your the company either grows or maybe sells part of its business and shrinks more than 10%. And if that growth or the shrinkage doesn't affect your ability to meet your annual reduction target, then we would say, please don't bother with this rule. Just continue the way you are. Only if you think, well, for example, we've purchased another company and we've suddenly doubled in size. There's no way we can meet our annual reduction target. Then requirement 3.8 allows you to adjust the baseline. I think when this applies to you, please contact your carbon advisor and we can discuss via that way if this is applicable for you. It's quite a technical requirement, but then you know that there are possibilities to do that. But again, if it doesn't affect your ability to meet your reduction target, then I would just keep the baseline the way it is. Next slide, please, Ellen. Yeah, so requirement 3.9 is a little bit related to 3.8. If you find new information that really affects the way you calculate your footprint, or just new tools have come out, or a new study is published, would really gives you more or better information on your footprint, and again, you think that the recalculation of your baseline is necessary for you, then requirement 3.9 allows you to do that. Again, please contact us and then we'll see if we can support you with that. Requirement 4.3 is also a little bit meets what Ellen had been saying in the beginning. We have a mandatory reduction target every year. That information is not new, hopefully. And this requirement will be relevant for you in year 2, year 3, until the end of your climate neutral group journey. And basically, if you are meeting your annual reduction target year after year, and you can also show that the reduction measures you're going to take in the short, medium, and long run can be substantiated, then this reduction or this requirement doesn't require that much work. It gets more interesting if you have some trouble 1 or multiple years reaching your goal. And then it's really interesting to look back at the plan, do, check, act principle and see what kind of actions or corrective measures you have implemented to get back on track. It's also really interesting to look at why didn't I meet certain reduction targets, and what were the reasons? Could they have been foreseen or not? And what can we learn from them also to maybe adjust our reduction plan for the future. The idea is that you, every year doing this, learn more and more about your organization, learn more and more about footprinting and the way reduction measures influence your footprint, but also how unforeseen things impact your reduction measures and your footprints. So what we would really like to see is that you also, as an organization, you grow. And we often say within the first year of certification, it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to present a perfect footprint or a perfect reduction plan. What's more important to us is that that an auditor can see that you learn as an organization and that you feedback the learnings from good things and bad things, that you feed that back into your learning system. Next slide, please, Ellen. I think I've already spilled the beans on this one a little bit with the last requirement. This is a requirement that where an auditor checks if you implemented corrections and corrective actions. Corrections are when you change something that didn't go wrong in the past, and corrective actions are what kind of action are you going to implement so in the future that same mistake is not repeated. So that's a little bit the difference between the two. I think I've said most. I've said most of the things. So Ellen, you can continue. So now we have a few requirements that are applicable to year 3. And as I explained about the quality management system, in year 3, it is required that you map or you describe. So you can either visualize it or you can write it all down. What are your operational procedures or processes and your business flow? So, sorry, what are your operational processes and what is your business flow? Described or mapped. So who within your organization is involved to every year prepare for the audit, but also throughout the year, who is responsible? When is senior management involved? What are the different roles and responsibilities? That's this year 3 requirement for the quality management system. Next slide, please, Ellen. Yes, so this is again the requirement 1.5 on the sustainable sourcing only for organizations. Really depending, this is hard for me to say what you exactly have to do with this requirement because it really depends on what decisions you've made in your, especially year 2. So you made a top 3 of your scope 3 emissions in year 1, and then based on that, you start exploring opportunities to influence upstream and downstream stakeholders, or you engage in different kind of initiatives. So you have, so please, when this requirement is applicable for you, please read it carefully because it allows you for different scenarios to comply with this requirement. If you have a lot of influence, a lot of buying power within your supply chain, you can negotiate or enforce emission reductions. For a lot of the smaller or medium-sized enterprises, this will not be this won't be feasible. And we also allow for you to actively engage or be a front runner in different platforms or initiatives. So this really depends on what decisions you make in year 1 or year 2. Next slide, please, Ellen.
I think it's me.
Yeah, I can. If you want, I can also start with the delayed sales rule.
Yeah, sure, please.
Sure. So we have 3 rules, and one is not really new because there's actually this rule, the delayed sales of certified products. We're going to briefly talk about 3 rules, but they've all been very clearly, I hope, because we wrote them, Ellen and me, clearly documented what these rules entail. So please, if you have questions about these rules, we have more information. The delayed sales of certified products rule is also already allowed, a rule allowed in the assurance protocol. This rule applies to organizations that are product certified, that have a product certified under the standard, but don't necessarily already have a buyer for that product. So sometimes we have clients that want their product certified, and only after they have completed everything, they're going to look in the market to see maybe if there's a supermarket or other end users that want to sell the product. So sometimes it feels for those clients a little bit redundant to have another audit straight away the year after, when they don't even really sell the product to anyone yet. So for those parties, we allow them to not calculate their footprint the year after their initial audit. So in year 2020, they have an audit. In the year 2021, they are exempted from having an audit. However, they are not exempted from meeting all the requirements from the standard and the assurance protocol. They are not audited. So the year after, they will get an audit to see if they met the reduction targets, to check their year 2 requirements. But they're only exempted from calculating one footprint. The rule can only be applied for 1 year. So if you still don't sell the product to an end user, unfortunately, you are required to have an audit. So you can apply it 1 year. All the year 2 requirements must be supported with evidence. So for example, with regards to your climate policy, you can have a print screen with a date of your website. And you can show that you've published it on time. If you want to make use of this rule, please inform the CB that you contracted, so they can adjust the validity of your certificate to make sure that you're still certified for the year that you are exempted from having an audit. I also copied the link in this slide, so you can find more information, what exactly the rule is and what the conditions are. And do you want to do the land use change rule, Ellen?
Sure. Okay. So another rule that we have developed in 2022 and have been made, let's say, effective from the beginning of this year onwards, is the land use change rule. Maybe you know that, especially for agricultural commodities, land use change can be a substantial part of the footprint. So if land use change emissions can be reduced somehow, usually then it helps clients to achieve a big part of the annual reduction target. So we've been really looking at this in detail. We have had a series of discussions and interviews with different parties to see how we could incorporate this so that actually land use change reductions, emission reductions, could be attributed to the annual reduction target. And what we are very careful with implementing this rule in the sense that it's quite complex, it's quite technical, and there's a lot of uncertainty about land use change emissions overall and how to calculate those. So actually, the whole rule is also subject to the new publication that's expected by hopefully mid this year, by the GHG protocol on land sector and removals guidance. But for now, we want to enhance this rule already because we believe that it helps a lot of clients to achieve the annual reduction target partially. So what is this rule about? This rule is really, as I was saying, for agricultural commodities for which land use change is an important component of the footprint. And what the IPCC guidelines prescribe is that emissions resulting from land use change should be included for the past 20 years. So if clients can substantiate that the products, the agricultural commodities that were produced on land, that land use change is not applicable or is not relevant, then if clients can substantiate that, then this land use change emissions can be partially reduced from the footprint. And how does that work? We have two scenarios. How we believe that at the moment we're testing this, and it could potentially be good scenarios to or reliable scenarios. The first one is if the farms that are sourced from are compliant with the Rainforest Alliance standards. So why not other standards, organic standards, etc. And that's really because we have had a series of interviews and discussions with the Rainforest Alliance, and we believe that their methods are of how they verify if land use change has happened, because they're doing that all with satellite images, polygon calculations, very technical, but they have good systems in place to really prove that land use change has not happened within a certain time frame. And that time frame is the cutoff date 2014. So if you can prove that your products are, your input material is Rainforest Alliance certified, then you can apply for this land use change rule. Another scenario, and this is something that we really have to pilot test how credible this needs to be, if you can prove yourself through satellite images and ownership of land using polygons or GPS coordinates that no land use change has occurred. And that is all very technical, and how, we don't have time to really discuss all of that, but those are the two different ways how you could substantiate that you could be eligible for this rule. And then there's a series of rather complex calculations, how you can subtract the emissions from your footprint. We're using the Qantas methodology, which is a methodology designed by a reputable organization that has been adopted as well or endorsed as well by the GHG protocol. It's very technical and complex, but those could be situations. If you're applying the land use change rule, what is very important is that you're able to demonstrate that your sourced input products are coming from a specific country. So you need to have some sort of traceability, and you need to know which country they are originating from. This rule is only effective from 2022 onwards, so it can only be applied for footprints from 2022 onwards. And it's also very important that you can prove that the total certified and you can prove the total certified and conventional volume per country. Otherwise, we can't make the distinction and can't reduce it for your footprint calculation. It's all quite technical. That's why at the moment we are accepting requests, and our content standardization committee is going to view those requests, and all requests needs to be substantiated with justifications and data and evidence, of course. So we're really looking at those situations now case by case. If you want to know more about this and you think this could potentially be interesting to you, I invite you to really take a look at our website. The whole rule is explained. Also, example calculations are explained there. It's quite technical, so our consultants are available to support you in the actual calculations if you need so. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm making it very, very quick. It's quite complex. Then there's another rule that we have implemented since last year, or actually since the beginning of this year, that we've designed last year, which is what we call the fictitious baseline rule. And this is relevant for clients that have implemented reduction measures in the past before the baseline. And if they've implemented them before the baseline, that means that they're actually not part of the reduction measures that they can use in order to achieve the annual reduction targets. And because the baseline is relatively lower, because those reduction measures beyond the baseline cannot be included. So the baseline is relatively lower and these reduction measures cannot be counted again. If that is the case, then a client may apply for what we call a fictitious baseline. So the baseline is manually topped up as if the reduction measure had not happened. So we manually increase the baseline footprint. And you can imagine if your baseline is going up and you have already done, and you can account for some reduction measures, you actually achieve the reduction target a little bit faster. By no means we want to create a situation where it's easy to achieve the reduction target. Of course, I don't want it to make it sound like that. But there are certain situations where we think it is fair to reward clients for good practice that they already did a long time ago. It would be unfair if they've done good practice already since a long time and they cannot account for those anymore in the current situation today. And that's the whole reason why we have implemented this new rule. You can apply as well for this by contacting our content standardization committee, and it can be applied in two different ways. On a total footprint, where we compare sort of a sector average footprint with the actual average, the actual footprint that you have, or you can apply this to only one or a limited number of specific emission sources. So by no means, as I was saying, this can lead to greenwashing or a decline of ambition. And that's why our advisory committee has requested us to at least make sure that once this rule is applied, that clients are still engaged in ambitions action. And so there's a range of options that you can choose from how you can maintain that sort of ambitiousness. Also here, calculations need to be substantiated with justification, concrete data and evidence, and the request needs to be made upfront. And you can find all about this rule on the link here. So if you feel that this could apply to you, if you have reduced or if you have implemented reduction measures earlier than your baseline year, let us know, because then let's see what we can do. Okay. Over to you again, Anne-Wil.
Yes. Sorry, I was finding my unmute button. We have in the making, hopefully soon finished, 2 templates that will make it easier for you to meet the requirements of the standards. The first template that we are developing is for a footprint report. In the standard, this footprint report is now mentioned under requirement 3.4.f, to be precise. And it asks you to document many different parts of your footprint and the way you've calculated your footprint. So now we're not working with a template yet, and we see that for auditors often it's very hard to figure out many different aspects of the footprint. And we've mentioned here quite a few aspects of a footprint report that we think should be described. The list is also mentioned on page 11 of the assurance protocol. But the footprint report asks you to tell us what's the methodology that you use to calculate your footprint. Is it compliant with the requirements mentioned in Annex 3B? Your footprint report should tell the auditor, the person reading could also be a colleague, what are the operational boundaries? What is the scope of your footprint? Cradle to gate or cradle to grave, for example. The different calculations that you have done, assumptions that you have made. For example, if you excluded certain emission sources, why did you exclude them? What's your justification for that? What other type of assumptions have you made? The fourth bullet is relevant for product certified clients, and this is something I'd really like to stress, is if you work with segments, if you don't know what a segment is, then it's probably not applicable to you. But if you use segment, what's the methodology that you use? Why did you choose this segment? How did your decision influence the way that the footprint is made? Please specify that. It's really very useful. Also, how do the different SKUs relate to the different segments? The absolute footprint. So for organization and service, it's nice to see all the different elements that your footprint contains, but please also make sure that somewhere is clearly written what in the end is your absolute footprint. What is the final result actually of the whole exercise that you did? It's really nice if the footprint reports also explains the baseline footprint, and every year updated with the actual footprint of the previous calendar year. Emission factor sources are supposed to be updated every year, and please list secondary data sources closely so it's easy to find. So you can show to an auditor very easily where did you get certain information from. Which emission factor did you use? What's the year it is coming from? And if you are using the sector benchmark tool, then please specify in your report if your footprint meets all the requirements, and if not, why didn't you meet certain requirements? What's the justification for that? And I know this seems like a lot of work, but I think in the end it will save you also a lot of work every year to gather all the data and to not have to figure out about the decisions that you made in the previous year. Or for example, we have quite a few clients that unfortunately have to deal with some temporary sick leave of colleagues, and a footprint report could really help a new colleague to understand what's being done with calculating a footprint year after year. So yeah, I know it seems like a lot of work, but this is actually, for an auditor, it's really very relevant, and I think for you in the end as well. Next slide, please. Because another document that we are currently, well, we already have a reduction template, but Jagamal, our colleague from the certification team, is working on making a more better version. Please don't try to read everything. It's just a snapshot of what he's working on. It's on many different points, it's exactly the same as the earlier version that many of you are already working on, but there are two things I'd like to highlight which are different. And the first is that this tool will really allow you to calculate the reduction versus an increase in another emission source. So let me explain that. For example, if one of the reduction measures for you is to switch your company vehicles to electrical vehicles, you will have less gasoline, diesel usage. So you can calculate the reduction that you achieve. But your emissions from electricity probably will go up. So how do these two relate to each other? And this new reduction template really allows you to better model and calculate that. And the second element that is new, which I personally like very much, is that you can match financial investments with reductions. So I think this new feature really makes sure that the reduction template meets reality, because often reductions, they require a lot of investment, and it's good to have a clear vision beforehand, or a clear picture of what a certain reduction is going to cost. And does a cost really have a lot of influence on your footprint, or is it just minor but costs you a lot? What's the impact actually? And I think that's a very nice new feature for the reduction target. I'll hope we can publish it on our website in the coming weeks. I know Jagama is already quite far with developing this, so we will inform you of when it's ready. Yeah. Last slide, please. So the program as it is now was published in 2020 and became effective from beginning of 2021. So this really allows us to see what we have achieved since then, and also some other common developments are currently showing up. And one development is that soon, as Ellen already mentioned, the 3-year flexibility rule is going to be applied for clients. So in your 4th audit, if you have not met the reduction target and you haven't applied for justifiable delay and didn't get that exception, then unfortunately you are suspended or decertified. So this is really an attention point, and we hope this and next year we won't have to apply this rule, but this is what is coming up. Also from our conversations with auditors, we know that they are focusing on certain parts of the standard, and I will highlight a few. Auditors have indicated that they're increasingly also checking the management system for the corrections and the corrective actions that I've described. And why they do it is because this 3-year flexibility rule is going to come up. So if you are not meeting the annual reduction target for 3 years in a row, what are you doing to prevent that? Is what I already explained, but they are going to focus more on that. Auditors also, this is also something I said before, it doesn't have to be perfect in the first year, but you should improve year after year. So if you have based your footprint using secondary data, you are required to add primary data to that. Otherwise, it's also really hard for you to substantiate reduction measures. So those two go hand in hand. CBs also have indicated that because of the increased intention, it actually should be attention, not intention, increased attention on claiming, they're also going to check more thorough if you have a label approval. So you can ask for our communications colleagues to check claims on your website or on PAC. You get an approval and the auditor checks if C&G has actually given this approval. And they've indicated, last point, that they are going to monitor more strictly on the availability of a footprint report, because for them, they also are getting increasingly more C&G clients, and for them it's also really important that they document certain things about the footprint in a better way, and they don't have to search in their memory to really think, oh, what was it with this footprint that the client has told me but is not written down. Now they are getting more and more clients, so footprint report also becomes increasingly important for them. So those are the focus points, the program and the auditors at this current moment. That's it. And we hope you have some questions for us. I don't see any questions in the chat, so please feel free to raise a hand or speak up if you have anything to ask, or you can also tell us something if you want. Now's the moment. Becca is asking, how are you approaching new greenwashing legislation? Ellen, do you want to say something about that?
Sure. So first of all, we're really following as much as possible what is going on at national level as well as at international level, and what sort of voluntary policymakers are saying. And we're very much closely following that. We personally believe that a lot of the things that we are requiring in our stand is really what, let's say, the international policymakers are also requesting. So you see that we were sort of front runners in the stringency around our program, and now they're requiring this from other programs as well. So we were actually in the lead in this. So for us, it doesn't necessarily change so much. What we are really focusing on is those things that we're doing, we have to do them even better. That's the reason why we have now this improved reduction plan template, the focus on label approvals, the focus on the footprint reporting, just doing those things even better. The actual effect of the whole discussion around claims and what is eligible, what are eligible claims and what is okay, that is something that we're really closely following, and I hope you be assured that it's really a topic that is really on our plate every day, because we see that a lot of really good and well substantiated claims are made by different schemes, by different programs, but there's also a lot of greenwashing going on. And it's sort of like the situations now is that the good ones are suffering from the bad ones, and that's really unfortunate. It's really a big pity, because it really creates this sort of fear about, you know, clients wanting to engage in these kind of programs, or potential clients that want to get certified, and it's really a pity, because the whole transition is sort of stopped a little bit, huh? So we have, and we are very open about it. I mean, we are also sometimes being questioned by different entities. We have even been involved in some cases that are public by the Reclamecodecommissie in the Netherlands. And it's just very unfortunate. What we can do is, first of all, we can make sure that what we are doing is done as good as we can, and we learn and improve as a scheme owner. And secondly, that we are very much closely following what our stakeholders want. And when we are reviewing the standard, which is most likely going to happen this year, the review process needs to follow the ICIL procedures, and it's usually a chunk of work that lasts for 1 or 2 years at least. What we can do is really hear very well what our stakeholders, clients, NGOs, other parties want, and what they're expecting from the program, to make sure that we can create as much impact as possible. But yeah, it's really a concern that we are having. And especially if it's creating a situation where the good ones are becoming, well, green hushers. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of that term. That is really, yeah, problematic, and very much a pity. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I asked the question. I'm Becca.
Yeah, hi Becca. Hi.
I wanted to follow up on that and share. I think that, and this isn't just climate neutral group, right? And I'm glad that it is coming down, so that it's not just like, I don't know, something from F1 that says carbon neutral and no one knows what it means. But I also think that we are falling as we transfer. We're getting ready to launch a product or like introduce emissions measurement into ad campaigns, so our clients understand the emissions from their ads. But just as like a tip of where we're coming from, and happy to discuss this in a separate conversation, but maybe it's applicable to other people on the call. We made an active decision not to call it carbon neutral media buy, because we're like, people aren't going to understand what it means, and we're just going to have like a firestorm come down on us, even if we have the best intentions. So I'm happy to talk about that, so we can share from our side, and maybe we can provide some insight and find a path forward too.
Yeah. So just on that, in the next few months, we will release a first high-level vision of different scenarios of where we could think that our program could go, with complete different claims options as well. And we really want to, engage our clients, especially in this, because we see that this is increasingly becoming worrying. But we still want to provide a good, solid, credible platform where how you can take climate action. And if that means with offsets, without offsets, with only focusing on reduction, or whatever whatever it should look like, we want to make sure that it's really providing for your needs, and we hopefully can deal with this increasingly worrying effect of greenwashing, honestly. Yeah. Thanks, Becca. Very good question. It's definitely a concern. Yeah. Any other questions?
I have no questions in the chat. Oh.
Yeah.
What Yedidia asks, what happens when you reach the 25% target, say 5 years early?
Well, if you already managed to achieve the reduction targets, let's say next year, 25% reduction, you're basically certified for the next few years. But right. On the condition that you can keep this line, so your footprint will still need to be evaluated every year, because I mean, meaning that if you are achieving it this year and then next year for whatever reason your emissions go up again, so you're again on +10, let's say, then of course, so yeah, we need to make sure that we continue monitoring that. But as I was saying at the very beginning of the presentation, if you can demonstrate that you are a good performer, you get audit exempts. So the frequency that this will be checked will be less. Yeah. And maybe also on that note, in the current version of the standard, the target is only going up to 2030. And beyond 2030, there's nothing set. Very, very likely in the next version of the standard, this line will be continued to whatever reduction target. But yeah, 4 years ago, our clients were not ready for that. Now we feel like this is a must. Yeah. Okay, which is a good thing. I'm really happy actually that I'm saying that, because it means that the whole paradigm about taking action and the responsibility that we all feel has really changed. 4 years ago, that was painful when we said that. But now this feels more like accepted already, because we feel this is the right thing to do. Yeah. So that's a good thing on a positive note. Yeah.
Paulo has a question.
Thanks, for the question.
Yes. No, I have two comments. First, I appreciate these conversations. I think it's very important for us to continue having this type of connection or conversation. I think all the webinar was very insightful. All the things that you are discussing that are new in the standard, very important to know about it. So first of all, thank you very much for the conversation. The first comment I have is that, well, we are from Latin America, and many people here, don't speak or can read in English. And once you are doing all the requirements in the standard, I have to translate the standard, which is quite difficult. It's quite large, I think, and the way it's written, it's not easy to translate, because it's not like a Word, right? A document in Word where you can just translate it. Since it has very modifications in the format, it is very difficult to translate. So I really think if someday you could translate in Spanish or other languages, it would be highly appreciated and helpful. My second comment is that it's very important. One of our main concerns is how to reach the reductions, which usually require a lot of investment. So I think it's I heard about the rule of the land user, land use, which is which I really wanted to discuss further with you, because it's one way to get part of the reduction, which really helps. Otherwise, we are always subject to high investments, which usually it's very difficult to be able to access to these investments. Usually, you don't have a ROI or a return of investment very quickly. It's a large time project. So it usually is very difficult to have these investments done. So if we can find other ways to reduce, it really would help. So I'm really looking into discussing these rules with you further.
Yeah, that's great, Paulo. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. I understood that you're now also with Marine exploring some insetting opportunities, right?
Right, correct.
Yeah. Let's also see if we can, maybe, if I may suggest, you could take a look at the land use change rule. And if you feel this could help you, that you discuss it with, I think Sanne is your carbon advisor, right? Yeah. Hi, Sanne. Hi.
Yes, correct.
To see how it could work for you, because I think there's definitely opportunities for you in both aspects, with insetting as well as with applying the land use change rule.
Yeah. Probably
Excellent.
we can schedule a meeting for that if you wish.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Let me check the rule, and I will contact you to make the
Sure.
meeting. Thank you very much.
I think follow-up question was asked with regards to the question of Yedidia. In addition to the question, what if we've reached 20% reduction this year and have planned to reduce the last 5% in 2022? But what if we can't reduce the last 5%? Maybe you would like to elaborate a little bit on this, Jacob? You have planned to reduce the 25%, but you're asking what if you can't?
Yes, correct. Hello, everybody. Thank you for this webinar so far. Currently, we have reduced about 20% year to date, and we're very proud of it, obviously. And we are planning to do the last 5% this year. But I'm just wondering, what if we are not able to reduce the 5% for this year, but it will be moved to, let's say, 2024. Will there be an issue, even though it's before our target line?
No, I assume you have set a 25% reduction rule until 2030. You have not put a more, if you have not put yourself a higher bar, then you can take your time with the remaining 5%. Yes.
Yeah, it's just that it's written down for this year, for example, but it's not like
Yes, I mean the reduction template that you draft it's always an estimation of what's going to happen in the future, and the auditor is going to look, okay, are you able to justify it? Do you need to make investments, especially on the short term? We ask you to be able to substantiate a little bit better than, for example, reduction measures in 2040. But if you are meeting your reduction targets for the next few years already, then I don't think an auditor is going to, then you have some flexibility in implementing the last 5. If you year after year can't show that you're going to reach the 5, the auditor might, issue major or minor non-conformity to reach that target. But it's not that because you wrote it down last year, you're not going to be certified this year because you didn't meet that. There are always reasons for you to not reach a certain measure, and that's always very logical. And the most important thing is that what do you actually learn from that, and how are you feedback looping that back into your organization? What are you doing with the information? Yeah.
Okay. thank you for your answer.
I would like to congratulate you with this great achievement, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
That's a
very
lot
proud
for
of
a
it.
product,
Also
yeah.
due to the LUC, but besides that, we already managed to reduce quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question maybe in addition to that. We've only been certified for 1 year. The LCA clearly was performed then, which included all different options of reduction that we were going to or will be doing in the future. I was wondering, do we have to repeat the LCA every year, even if it's still valid for the situation, or can you keep it? Because I was wondering, I wasn't really clear about that in the protocols.
And then you want to answer?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I understand you. Is your question, do you need to recalculate your footprint every year? Yeah. Because you need to be able to demonstrate that you maintain those reductions, right? Even if you've already achieved 20%, there could be all sorts of reasons why emissions go up again.
Yeah,
and
in our situation, there's no change. So I was kind of wondering how then it would definitely result in the same LCA. So I was kind of wondering.
Yeah, and is that because you're making use of secondary data? Is that the reason? Yeah.
Partially at least.
Yeah. So if you want to be an ambitious player, let's say, then you could see if you could make small improvements by acquiring little by little more primary data. So you get even better insight and control over your supply chain. Yeah. And what we really try to challenge companies is that try to continuously improve, try to do better year after year. But I mean, yes, you've achieved your reduction target already for quite some years. So in that sense, from a compliance perspective, if you can demonstrate that you keep the bar high, then from a compliance perspective, you are doing awesome. But I can imagine that you as an organization, you want to continuously improve, you want to do better, etc. I mean, I really get that feel with you guys. So in that sense, you could use the scheme as well to continuously improve in that sense. Yeah, for your own internal reasons. Yeah.
No, but then it's also clear what to expect. So that's good to know.
Yeah.
There was a question if the slides of the webinar will be shared, and I will email everyone tomorrow with the final presentation. Yeah, and some links to the website and our contact details. I won't email everyone the video because it's quite a large document. But please let us know if their colleagues would like to watch it, and then I'll share it via WeTransfer. Climate neutral certified.
Maybe we can also put the recordings on our website, like the last webinar sessions that we did last year.
Ah, yes, that's actually a good suggestion. That's even easier.
Yeah.
I don't see any more questions. If you, after the presentation, after today, have questions for us, then please feel free to shoot us an email or contact your carbon advisor. Either way, I'll mention the details in the email I'll send tomorrow, so you'll always be able to find us.
Great.
Ellen, have you any final remarks?
No, I just want to congratulate everybody on their good performance. Assuming you did well. Yeah, good luck. It's not easy. So. We totally realize that it's not easy, but it's needed. Yeah. So thank you for your involvement and willingness, and thank you for that. Okay, great. Then I think we just say goodbye. Good luck.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.